There you go, Paul. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for making the time.
I do, Dan. I'm absolutely crap at this stuff.
No, you are on time. Your background looks cool. You connected to audio. I don't see anything wrong.
Still working. Remarkable.
Exactly.
How did that happen?
Magic.
The magic of technology, eh? Where would we without it?
Exactly. So many things I want to ask you about your career, but Professor and the Madman, is that the latest thing that you've worked on?
Yeah, sort of in conjunction with the Sensible Grey Cell stuff. When did I start doing? 2 years ago, I think, with Sean and Alfie. Do you want the story?
Yeah, sure, please.
They sent me a message via Facebook. I don't do Messenger. I try and avoid all that because it's like a kind of dark rabbit hole, you know. I think it was, anyway, they sent me a message and they said, we got a song that we'd like you to play on. We think, you know, the way you play would kind of like really work with it.
Right.
So I said, yeah, sure, go and bang it over. So he sent it over and it was this track called Nightmare. And it was absolutely phenomenal. It was like some kind of dark kind of $1 billion babies, sort of dark gothic rock. Everything was in this sort of 5-minute song. And there was a bit of kind of like rough bass they'd done in the background, but there was an organ intro, this fantastic kind of like Dr. Phibes, you know, organ intro. And, you know, the hairs went up on the back of my neck. So I've got the old bass out. I know exactly what to play there. So I played all over that, which I probably shouldn't have done. Sent it off to them. And they said, oh, that's blooming great. Can we send you some more? So they sent me some more. And they said, oh, by the way, Rat's playing on it. You know, because I haven't played with Rat for donkeys yet.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, is that cool? Said, yeah, great. You know, the more the merrier. So I've never actually recorded like that before because they sent over the tracks that they'd done. And there's like a drum only track, a kind of MP3 of everything, guitars only, you know, different. So I could sort of mix it myself on the laptop. And then it's brilliant because you haven't got your own studio clock. You haven't got some producer to sing. You haven't got the pub over the road saying, time for a beer. You know? You just kind of like crack on with it, you know.
Yeah, you do it.
And I loved doing it. And I met the guys. I went over on holiday for a road trip to California and all the canyons and all that a couple of years ago. And good enough to drive over to meet us in Vegas and show us all of the Hoover Dam and all that. And we just kind of hit it off, and it's continued that way. And they bombard me with stuff now, and I never know what's going to come next because every song is its own little kind of adventure. So it's kind of really exciting to know whether it's going to be some kind of like seemingly jolly pop song that's probably got some really dark, bitter, twisted lyrics to it,
right?
Or some kind of like, you know, 70s nod to, you know, kind of full on out and out rock and roll, or something that's got a real kind of like, you know, pop sensibility with a kind of a gothic twist, all sorts of stuff in there. So it's great. And the new one, Seance, I haven't actually heard everything yet because they send tracks to me on a random basis. I think they forget to send them sometimes. So I haven't heard the whole thing in sequence yet, but it kind of follows on from the other stuff that we did. Bit more of a kind of a theme to this one. You know, it's kind of reminds me a bit of a kind of mix of Tommy and Odyssey and Oracle and the Village Preservation Society and all these kind of bits of musical theatre. And I got a board game going with it. It's a little bit kind of loosely based on Monopoly. Yeah, I think I haven't seen it yet. But instead of landing on a building, you land on one of these sort of fantastic old iconic venues that's gone like CBGB's or the Vortex, you know, or the Rock. Instead of going to prison, you end up in a job centre or the dole centre or something. It looks great. They got this whole thing going with it. So, I can't wait to see how it all works.
That's one of the things I really appreciate you and the Damned guys, who I saw last year, Madison Square Garden here in New York. Your influences were different than a lot of the other bands who are your contemporaries in the early punk scene. When I interviewed Captain Sensible a couple of weeks ago, he talked about how much he loved the Monkees in Chicago. And you've already named Alice Cooper and Odyssey and Oracle by the Zombies. And it's so refreshing to hear musicians who don't just listen to fast stuff if they play fast stuff as musicians.
It's been like a day job, the fast stuff, isn't it? I mean, I love all that, I like all the fast stuff, but I'm very like Captain and very like Sean and Alfie, the PATM guys, in that we're suckers for a great pop song.
Yeah.
It's all about, to me, it's all about the melody. I never listen to lyrics as much as I should do. It's one of my big failings. I hear that. I hear you agree with me, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a music guy. If you ask, say all the words to your 5 favorite songs of all time, I couldn't do that. I can't tell you all the words to my favorite songs, but I can tell you what the bass part is and the guitar part is.
I can just about remember the titles of them. That's about it. So, I mean, we all love that kind of. With Captain, we and Dave Vanian, that's our kind of glue. We love all that 60s stuff, all the Nuggets bands, the Monkees, of course, the Blues Magoos.
Oh yeah,
all that kind of, where punk really started, the Kingsmen, all that trashy, great 3 minutes. We had this thing called the Squeaky Organ Club in the Dam, which is those first 3 chords of I'm a Believer, ba 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 ba,
yeah,
which is basically Louie backwards. We sort of try to get that on every song. And I think I probably still do everything I write. It's probably got those 3 chords in it somewhere because they're just great. They just work,
Yeah.
So that's, we have got a lot of that kind of, the love of the 60s stuff. And again, that's what links in with the Professor The Madman guys, because they've got that, they've got English ancestry. They're kind of like, quite Anglophiles in a way. And they've got a massive knowledge of music, their music bank is huge. And of course they've been through all the Californian punk thing, with the Adolescents and DI and all of that.
Right.
And it great fun and all that, but you kind of yearn to do something a bit more out of that constraint, And I grew up with the glam rock bands, T-Rex, Sweet Slade.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I got all my kind of influences from. And then I discovered, Deep Purple and Mountain, love Mountain Life stuff, Hawkwind. So it's a big kind of mix, I think growing up, I was born in 58, and I don't know how old you are, but kind of coming of age in 68 and just starting to be aware of hearing songs on the radio and yelling, oh, that sounds pretty good.
Right.
And that next 5 years was phenomenal. Wasn't it? It was an absolute roller coaster, more the kind of, psychedelic stuff through the pop stuff, to the glam stuff, to the kind of all those great, Black Sabbath and Grand Funk and Deep Purple albums. And then, of course, we came along.
For better. I'm not going to say for better or for worse. I'm going to say for better, the Damned.
Yeah.
And an interesting thing to me about you is you can't just say, oh, that's Paul from the Damned. It's not like that's the only thing you did. You always played in other bands. You worked with the British Musicians Union and so forth. Did I read correctly that you were in Fastway for a little bit?
Oh, that's a funny story. Yeah, I met, how did that happen? I think I met Fast Eddie, and Lee Hart was his singer at the time, down the Marquee probably. And it was probably one of those drunken nights. And, yeah, you should join our band. All right then. When was that? The late
80s.
Late 80s, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
And remember going round to Fast Eddie's flat in Notting Hill for a photo session. And you know, he's on the old vodkas and everything, and it's gonna be fucking great, this band. Yeah, we're gonna go to America and tour with Girls School, and it's gonna be big, He's really enthusiastic about it. We did one photo session, had about sort of 10 meetings in various bars and pubs in London, and then nothing at all happened with it. So I think I got my photo on the back of an album they already recorded with somebody else playing bass. I don't know who it was. But I never actually recorded with them, which was a big shame, because I'd have liked to play with Fast Eddie. You know, I played with Larry Wallace, his sort of predecessor in Motorhead, on the single.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we never actually. Oh, we had the same manager, I think, as well. For Doug Smith managed Hawkwind and the Damned, and I think he managed Fastway. I'm not entirely sure, but so yeah, it was one of those things that it could have been, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but didn't.
I think it's a funny thing with Fastway. I think it's a great band. I liked the albums, but when I interviewed as a much younger man around 2000, I think I was 18, 19 years old, I interviewed Dave King, who's in Flogging Molly, and the second that you say Fastway, he goes, ugh. And, you know, he super does not want to be associated with that, or at least back then. And in your case, like, yeah, it was fun. Didn't happen, but it was fun.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a backstory to every band, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes you just kind of, you know, got to shrug your shoulders and think, well, it's all part of it, you know.
Exactly.
Spend the day job.
Exactly. And I don't think you ever have been asked this before, or at least I haven't read it. Has a check ever erroneously come to you because they thought that you were Paul Gray from Slipknot?
For about a year, actually, I got I think it's something called PPL payment.
Yes. Yeah.
If you don't write the song but you play on it, you get a small royalty every time it's playing radio, TV.
Yeah.
Look at my state 1 year, and there was this song, "People Equal Shit." I thought, what the fuck's that? I don't know that one. And then it kind of twigged after a while. It wasn't for a lot of money, you know. We're talking like probably about less than 10 quid or something, you know.
Yeah.
And this went on for about 3 statements, and I kept emailing the PPL lot until they said, "Oh yeah, we're paying you." That was the only song, "People Equal Shit." No idea it happened. So yeah, I had some of his royalties for about 9 months, and then in the next statement they redacted whatever I'd had from him off my royalties, and it, you know, hopefully it went back to him and not the management. But yeah, I did. Yeah, funny story, that, isn't it?
Yeah, there's that long
list. It would have
list.
been tens of thousands, you know. I got off and spent it all. No, it wasn't me, Garth, but it wasn't. It was about as much as I got, which wasn't very much.
You're on that long list of musicians who had the same name, and that could happen. The first one I really learned about was the David Bowie, aka David or Davy Jones. So I figured I had to ask that Paul Gray question. So there you go. I appreciate that answer.
Hey, you know, I've mentioned it a few times. I've never been asked it before. Yeah.
Huh. Well, so you got this Professor Madman ongoing collaboration. It's interesting that you don't know what's coming next. Is there anything else that you're working on at the moment? I know the Damned have an EP that's coming out in like 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. Yeah, we've had a couple of singles taken off that. That's coming out. Yeah, a couple of weeks. And at the same, it's funny, you know, that because this year's been the most terrible year for musicians, obviously, ever.
Sure.
You know, and God knows when it's going to resolve itself. But it's actually been the most productive year for me out of any year as far as recording and writing goes, because there's bugger all else to do. You know, you can't go out and tour. And, you know, I grow my vegetables out the back there, but there's only so many hours you can spend tending your beans, isn't there?
Yeah.
So been a lot of writing and collaborating. And at the same time, well, just before the lockdown over here, we started recording the second Sensible Grey Cells album, which is my thing with Captain and a jump called Martin Parrott, who plays with Johnny Moped. And we got all the backing tracks down this little studio in Reigate called Panther, was going great. And then this blasted pandemic came, everything was shut down.
Right.
And we had to finish it all remotely. So we did quite a lot of our first album, which we did in, when was that? 2012, on our laptops and pinged the files to each other. So we carried on doing that. And that's kind of, so the whole summer, I've been doing bits of bass for it, guitar, keyboards, bits of vocals and all that. So as Captain, we sent it, actually there's a link there, because we couldn't get in the studio to mix it. Mm-hmm. So we thought, how the hell are we going to get this thing mixed? Because my ears are buggered. Captain's
right,
on.
You suffer from tinnitus, and luckily you've had a bit of a recovery. I'm glad to hear.
Well, it hasn't recovered. I just use in-ear monitors now and try and ignore it. But and Captain's ears aren't the best now. So we farmed it out to a couple of different people to do mix on various songs. And I suddenly thought, let's ask Sean and Alfie from PATM. So we sent a song to them. They came back and it was fabulous. So we ended up sending them, I think, 8 songs or 9 songs. There's a bit of a link there now. So they produced, or rather they haven't produced, they've mixed 8 or 9 songs on the new Sensible Grey Cells album. We completed that about a couple of months ago, and that's coming out. When's that coming out? That's coming out at the end of November. Mm-hmm. I think 2 weeks after the Professor The Madman album, the Sensible Grey Cell album, and then the Damned EP's coming out, a couple of weeks before that. So there's all this activity, and the old brain's a bit kind of scrambled with it, because I'm doing a couple of interviews, different interviews and stuff at the moment, and, compiling. I think, who am I talking about now? What song? And I forget what songs on what album and everything. But it's been good fun. And because of all the remote stuff, I thought I'd try and get a bit more remote recording in, because it's a piece of cake to do. I just use it on my MacBook. So I sort of set up this little website, Paul Gray Bass Online, to see if I can get a bit more online session stuff. And I've had some really interesting projects come in for that. So I've been doing a bit of that as well. So happily, I've been kept pretty busy. I just hope it continues, because next year, as far as I can see, is going to be a complete washout for touring as well. Got to help everybody, not just the bands. It's all the crew and the tech guys and the venues and, everybody in the industry. So Lord knows what's going to happen. But, carry on writing, carry on recording, carry on getting bombarded by stuff from Sean and Alfie. And, the more the merrier.
Well, thankfully, you did get to play Madison Square Garden last year. So if that's the last hurrah for a while, that's a pretty big one, to say the least. You got time for... Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's one of those things that's kind of on your tick list. You think, nah, never do that one, never get to play there. And it comes up, and the backstage area is kind of as big as most venues that we play. It's just canaverous back, about 20 Arctics in the back. And all the backstage guys, they'd have been there when Frank was there. They're all kind of dolled up in their suits, these old boys about, 75. And we did it with the Misfits, right? And Cro-Mags. And you could almost sort of see them sneering down their noses at, who do these guys think they are, different when Frank and Sammy played here, It was a real fun thing to do. It was one, I think did we fly in and fly out for it? I can't remember. Had about 5-minute sound check. No sound check, line check. Went on, the punters were still kind of coming in. And it was absolutely marvelous. Great fun.
I can imagine, but 2 quick questions and then you're free for me. Sound okay?
So again?
2 quick questions for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, first one. What's been your best television discovery since the pandemic and being locked down and all that?
There's a series on Netflix called, is it on Netflix? Trapped.
Mm-hmm.
It's an Icelandic kind of murder mystery thing. And I normally stay away from the cold. I'm a bit weird. If I go to a beach, the beach has got to face south or west. If facing east is all wrong, right? Because the sun's behind you. Facing north's all wrong. So north I equate with kind of like dark nights and cold. I like going south, you know, I like the heat.
Yeah.
But this series was set in Iceland, and it looked it just incredibly atmospheric with this great sort of dark cello music soundtrack to it. That was a really good discovery. I've got a terrible memory for watching things on the telly and Netflix because I think it's partly due to my tinnitus. My mind wanders terribly, and I find it really difficult to concentrate. Mm-hmm. So I've got this permanent, you know, 24 hours a day, you know.
Understandably, I have a little of that too. Yeah.
You know, if you didn't try to ignore it, you'd walk in the sea, not walk out again. So I find myself, well, I don't really go to cinema because 2 hours sat in a seat, I get really fidgety.
Yeah.
I want to sort of get up and do something else and then come back to it. So I'm not great at concentrating on it, but that series Trapped was a good one. And I've been delving into the kind of YouTube videos on, you know, a lot of the 60s bands. Mm-hmm. And what was that one I was watching? The other thing I was watching was those No Effects. We met those No Effects guys at some festival in Nashville, I think, last year. And they do this great kind of video stuff of them on tour over the years. Yeah. Been watching it, great fun. They were great to hang out with. As crazy as we were sort of back in the day. So yeah, I've been sort of delving into a lot of that. But I don't watch a lot of that stuff, to be quite honest. I tend to go upstairs and turn the old keyboard on and try and get a nice squeaky organ sound and write another pop song.
The squeaky organ. Well, the key is you're productive on a variety of projects and still doing great stuff. So my closer, Paul, is any last words for the kids?
Don't let the bastards grind you down.
Well said.
Wear a mask and keep safe. I want to get back to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I do hope to see you again in New York very soon, even if it's not at Madison Square Garden. But thank you so much for your time, the years of great music and all that. Keep it up.
Cheers, Darren. Nice to speak to you, mate.
Likewise. Take care.
Ta-ra then.
Paltrocast.